Hello, friends. So this month I am doing the transits for September via this setup here. I thought it would be interesting to do it this way just so that you can see my face. You can also see the chart so you know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, oh, this is doing this is doing that. But also it kind of gives you a visual to look at when we think of these transits as well. Um, Something to note when we look at transits, and sorry, I'm always going to be looking over here because I'm like looking at this little screen of myself. But when we look at the transits, we are also, or we are not looking at the houses per se, because the houses will tend to change. And so when we look at these transits, and if you are someone who is a little bit more knowledgeable when it comes to astrology and things, and if you're wanting to look at like where exactly is this happening in my chart so I can see what exactly is happening for me, or how this transit might be hitting for me, you will be looking at the houses. But then again, you will probably have some sort of like bi-wheel, which looks like this. And in the inner circle, I tend to do the inner circle. In the inner circle, that would be like your chart. And the outer circle would show you the transits as they're happening, where they're happening, etc. So definitely, if you are a little bit more skilled, you feel a little bit more confident, I would take a peek. Otherwise, let me see, there's some apps I could recommend to you guys that can make this a little easier. One is Astro Future, and another is Astro Matrix. And I'm just trying to see if there are any others. I like Astro Future because it will, I think they don't automatically send you notifications, so you kind of have to go into the app for them to send any to you, or to trigger that to happen. Time Nomad is another good one. Sometimes they will give you notifications as to like what is hitting where in your natal chart. But I love Astro Future because it gives you kind of a nice little breakdown. It tells you what elements are strongest, like air, earth, fire, the quality of the energy that surrounds you, and kind of the duality, if it's more of a yin energy around you right now or more of a yang energy. Like for me, the fire element is probably the weakest right now. The strongest would be the air element, and that yang energy is very strong for me right now. I wish I could just like, hey, here it is. But just due to my background, you can't. So that's one I do highly recommend. I really like that one. It gives you a little breakdown too of some of the key players when it comes to what's transiting and what's transiting your natal chart. Time Nomad is another great one, and Astro Matrix is one that I love. It's completely free. The one thing I don't like about Astro Future is that you cannot change the chart type. I personally use whole sign houses, so that's why my chart looks usually, all the little houses are very even. Placidus, it kind of gets a little wonky. Some of the houses are large, some are a lot smaller, and I personally don't use that form. And so that's the only thing I don't really like about Astro Future. A lot of the information still applies. For some people, that planets that your houses, or the planets in the houses, will be different. But I don't think the signs really change. But Astro Matrix I really like. I believe you can set it to whole sign house or use a different house system if that's your preference. And it's nice because they give you a pretty long write-up when it comes to what transits are happening, what sort of themes you'll see, etc. So definitely check those out if you're wanting to take a deeper peek into what these things mean for your chart specifically. So just diving right in. I have it for, I have my notes over here, by the way. It is hard for me to just go boom, 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 boom. I definitely have to make notes. A lot of astrologers make notes and refer back to them as they do their little situation. Tis what my teacher does, tis what I do, tis what a lot of astrologers do. So if you see me looking over, that's what I'm doing. I'm just looking at my notes. I have keywords, archetypes, and all that good stuff written down. So starting with this first energy, Mars in Virgo opposing Neptune in Pisces. So we see Mars in Virgo down here. I don't know if I can do my little circle thing. I think I can annotate. And apologies if this takes me a minute. I'll just draw it on here real quick. Oh, here we go. That's what I was looking for. So let's see. Mars in Virgo opposes Neptune in Pisces. So what we're looking at is this right here. Mars in Virgo opposing Neptune in Pisces. And so as you see right here, it's September 1st. So they aren't necessarily in complete alignment. But when we go to the next day, which I'm trying to figure that out right now. Here we go. But when we go to the next day, we see that this is a complete, or they perfect this transit perfect. So as we see yesterday, Mars is at 21 degrees, or today, Mars is at 21 degrees, and then tomorrow it hits 22 degrees and perfects that opposition with Neptune. And so with Mars, we see a lot of themes of action, of war, of combat, high energy, sometimes lashing out, fighting back, rationalizing before this is Mars and Virgo. So we see those energies of Mars, but they are kind of dimmed down a little bit because we are also dealing with Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, but Virgo is also an earth sign. So it kind of cools down Mars in some sense. So this brings in the theme of rationalizing before we make rash decisions. And then Neptune has this sense and this vibe of intuition, especially with Pisces. Intuition, dreams, spiritualism, personal sacrifice, the name of spirituality, feeling overwhelmed by the struggles of life, oneness. Can be very dreamy, like I said, can be very smoke and mirrors, and it can be and present itself as very Hollywood. Hollywood in the sense of like, these people are really well dressed. They look amazing all the time. We see all these amazing photos of them, and that's kind of the perception that we have of them. But also Hollywood in the sense of like, that's how we perceive them because that's how they're shown to us, but that's not exactly who they are. And so with the combination of these energies, the opposition between Mars and Neptune, we can see this as fighting for a cause or even a lack thereof. Maybe not really having much of a cause within us and just kind of feeling combative just in general. So I have to plug in my computer really quick. So we can kind of see that thing, feeling misguided by our spiritual motivations and interests. And so that can kind of surface as, oh, okay, I missed one little point, anarchy, or even feeling like there's no reason to fight. But the misguided spiritual motivations and interests, that can kind of surface as like, for example, I'm doing this Kundalini course right now, and I was looking at introductory videos, and one of the teachers, the man who owns the program, he was doing an introductory video, but he was speaking on how very, very important it is to make sure you know what your intentions are before even stepping into this course. Just because of the nature of Kundalini energy can be very intense. It's not always for everyone or for everyone at every point in life. Sometimes it can be too intense for people. So you really have to have some awareness, self-awareness in that way. But he was talking about how it's important to make sure that when you are doing this course, you have the right intention, because learning these practices just for the name of being able to say that you're more powerful than someone, that you're more knowledgeable, that you are more spiritual, that is kind of taking away from the whole purpose of why you are doing the thing in the first place, why you're taking the course. So making sure that your interests in your spiritual motivations, your interests and your spiritual motivations are pure, and your intentions are pure as well. We can also see this as energetic battles. That was something else that came up for me too when I was thinking of different themes and archetypes for these different transits. I was feeling like people who tend to be into the magical work, dark magic, white magic, whatever you want to call it, just magic in general, chaos magic. maybe in terms of like having again a different agenda where you feel like, oh, they wronged me, so I got to go out and do this. And I'm not saying that I don't support people who do that, but there is definitely a time and place to do that work. And it is not every time someone does something wrong. It is not every time someone cuts you off while you're in traffic and the lady at the restaurant isn't able to give you the side that you want, or your DoorDash person drops off your order and two meals are missing. It isn't doing all that crazy stuff for that. It's making sure that you, again, have that mindfulness and that awareness within you to know when it's time to act and when it's not, and when um, to just let the universe do its thing, because the universe will take care of it. So even if it's not within your time frame, it will be taken care of, because people just always have a way of catching themselves up. So making sure that we are being um, well guided in our decisions that we make. It's kind of like a mix of ego and spiritual when it comes to these energies. We can also see energetic battles. That was something else I was trying to get into. Voodoo for good or not so good purpose. That can go into chaos magic and all the other things. Energetic battles. So maybe psychic attacks and things like that, which we can definitely experience when sometimes I think of like the baby witches on TikTok, as people call them, who were trying to hex the moon or whatever, if that was what they were doing, or trying to hex these different things. That was just like, you kids clearly don't know what's going on here, so maybe just take it down a notch. But um, whereas maybe like a experienced practitioner receiving energy from the outside in ways of that nature. Kind of reminds me of this post that I saw on Instagram a few weeks ago, where someone was talking about this person who had ordered a candle from her to use on her because they were upset with her. And it's funny because, someone who is inexperienced might do something like that. They may think, oh, well, it's one of their possessions, there are energies on it, blah, blah, blah. But they often forget that a lot of these people that provide these services and these products are very skilled. And so even though you think they're having an upper hand, you might be kind of screwing yourself. So making sure that within this energy that feels kind of combative, making sure that we are stable and balanced in how we react to things right now. So let's see, some of the other key points I had were confusion in a direction to move forward, being overtaken by your ego or sacrificing your ego, learning to flow, releasing the need to control, new age ideals that disregard the shadow, so that, the love and lighters, as we call them, the love and light cult, who often feels like, oh, just love and light it away, it'll disappear. Wow, magic, Disney. That's not necessarily what it is. A lot of them don't really recognize that there is a shadow. No shame to them in their practices. It's just that's a part of their evolution that they have to move through. Which also again reminds me of my Kundalini course, because he was talking about how in Kundalini, like, you'll have experiences, you'll see things, you'll experience things. But it's like the more you learn, the more you don't get so caught up in the, what does it mean? I got a Google search. I saw 222. I pulled this card. Da 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 da. And then you just continue to confuse yourself because you're like, oh, it's all these things. There's all these things. But as you dive deeper and you become more experienced and you get further into your practice, you're better able to say, okay, yeah, I noticed that. I saw the 222, I pulled the card, I saw the yellow and green train, and that's great. They feel symbolic to me. I'm going to write them down though, and I'm not going to put too much energy into the, what is this? Let me go do the sleuth work. Let me go on a Google search. Let me read all these books. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just sit with that, be present with it, show gratitude toward it, and keep on moving. And then once you maybe go back through the journal, if you've taken account of these different experiences you've had, maybe then you can say, oh, that did have its significance to me. but it's allowing yourself to be present for those moments rather than kind of removing yourself from them, trying to observe them so hard. Sorry for my alarm. So New Age ideals that disregard the shadow, New Age practices and actions that disregard respect for ancient history and tradition, accountability beginning, and then this is like a more physical part. Some people notice they want to work out more during this time, start caring about their physical fitness a bit more, creating more stable regimens, especially with that Virgo energy. Virgo tends to be very like methodical, organized scheduler. And so creating more of that for yourself could also possibly pop up. But yeah, those are some of the themes for this Mars and Neptune opposition that we might see. So then moving on to the 4th, and let me take a little annotation guy away. There we go. And then do this, and we're going to the 4th of September. So here we are on the 4th of September. Mercury in Libra down here is trining Saturn in Aquarius, which is right up here. And yep, they are exact. So we can take our little annotation. I just want to show you guys. There is Mercury here, trining Saturn in Aquarius right up here, which you can also see the little triangles are trines. Excuse me. So, okay. I don't know what just happened, but yeah, no, we're good. I don't know what was going on there. So we've got Mercury in Libra trining Saturn in Aquarius, both air signs. So that's also why it's a trine, because they are in the same element. But through this transit, we can see themes of thoughts creating careful action and planning for the future. So Mercury being in Libra, Libra creating balance, and you'll see that word come up a lot throughout this forecast, just because we're dealing with a lot of Libra energy. But balance, structure, balance in thoughts, communication, communication that serves both sides well, you know, finding a equal playing ground, equal playing level. Had some other things in here. Thus creating careful action and planning for the future. So also the communications that we might have during this time, if you have like a special meeting, a meeting with your boss or something like that, Saturn energy can kind of have like a bossy, boss-like sort of energy. Maybe even meeting with a teacher or something like that, or teachers having a meeting where there's a communication that brings more balance, more structure, and more of a equal playing field for everyone, where maybe needs are discussed in a way that serves everyone well and restores some sense of balancing of the scales rather than allowing us to feel like everything is kind of up in the air. Possibly using your mentalities as a resource. That could be using your thoughts, using your communication, communicating and spreading advice as a form of moving forward in whatever it might be. That could also be talking to a group of people, or again, like people that are in higher positions, in order to establish a stepping stone so that things are kind of put on the right path and everything's going in the right direction. And again, communication that creates mutual benefits and understanding now and into the future. Revisiting unfinished projects, so that could be projects that you kind of left behind. It could even be big projects or meaningful projects that you kind of forgotten about, and maybe revisiting those projects so that you can wrap up things from the past that you maybe forgot about and move forward. And that could also be like, I see it as revisiting some sort of meeting or some sort of, excuse me, some sort of meeting or some sort of topic that you met about in the past, and seeing if there isn't a way to kind of bring more balance into whatever it may be just through that communication. So maybe revisiting something so that you can rehash it and figure out a solution that works for everyone and brings more balance and allows people to feel safe, comfortable, and stable rather than, everything is up in the air. So that is something we might experience with that little transit there. Then moving forward to the 6th, we have Venus in Libra, and that is squaring Pluto and Capricorn. So we do our little annotation guy here. So Venus in Libra is squaring, you can see it right here. And I think it's, moved. It looks like it's moved a little bit past just because this is a transit that most likely happened earlier in the day. And also with these, I'll let you know that it's not always going to be the exact day. Like the exact day that I'm giving is like when the transit goes exact or perfects, I suppose. But we tend to, with these energies, and I wish I could figure out how to pull up that graph to show you. But with these energies, they kind of fade in. And then there's like this point where the energy is really, really strong. And then they kind of fade out. We still experience the energy, but not as strong. And then when we fade in, we're building into that energy, but it's not like we're sitting in it quite yet. So anyway, just pretend that this is, pretend that this is the 25th or the 24th degree. But earlier in the day, you'll see that. So I just don't feel like going back through the clock. But with, let's see, Venus and Libra squaring Pluto and Capricorn, this gives us a deep sense of transformation. Venus is in its home sign, so that's really nice. This brings about thoughts and feelings of communication, harmony, balance, possibly finding a solution for everyone, thinking of the community and problem solving, finding unity through balance. That can often be something that we see with Venus in Libra. Those are some of those themes. And then with Pluto, we see a lot of transformation, explosion, a lot of the dark coming to the surface, doing what needs to be done in order to restore balance, even if that means a collapse or a fall. And so through these energies, we are kind of finding and restoring the balance that needs to be restored through deep transformation. It's almost very similar to the Tower card, where it's like, there's some level of self-sacrifice that is required in order for there to be balance that is restored, simply because that self-sacrifice requires some deep inner transformation in order for everything to be restored. And so that doesn't necessarily only have to be on a personal level, that could be on a planetary level, on a level within your country, whatever the case might be. But a sense of restoring balance through a collapse or fall, through self-sacrifice, and just doing what needs to be done. So that's something that you might experience or feel on this day. Or even if I know that some people do like a form of self-sacrifice as a devotional practice. And so if you're thinking about doing something like that, this might be a day for that. It might be a little bit heavier because it's Pluto. So there's deep energy for transformation. But maybe this is something that you've already felt kind of leading up into this energy while Venus has been in Libra. Pluto has been in Capricorn for like forever. But Venus being in Libra and just being in that house, even though the square isn't perfected, that energy again is still there. And so maybe you felt that, like you felt like these little moments of deep transformation that have really brought you to this place where you are able to restore balance within you, within your family life. It almost even reminds me of like a divorce of sorts, where it's like it maybe needed to happen on both ends in order for everyone to feel safe and comfortable and, feel like there could be balance restored within the home, within relationships, within everything. So that sort of energy. And I think Venus also trines Jupiter in Aquarius, which I kind of already said. Unless I got the day wrong on that. Oh no, I'm good. I was looking at Saturn, thinking the whole other thing. But no, I took a peek at that earlier and I noticed that. So Venus is also trining Jupiter right here. And that's another perfected transit that we can see here. So this kind of gives us some really good vibes, honestly. Expansion, unity with fortune and overindulgence is possible, or even excess. Those are some themes that we can see from Jupiter. Although Aquarius does give it some balance in the way of like stability, making sure that we aren't overindulging in a way that is kind of overthrowing everything that we've worked for. But also at the same time, Jupiter is retrograde in Aquarius, so maybe revisiting different things. Like maybe if you have noticed like COVID weight or whatever people call it, um, maybe this is kind of going back and reassessing that, reassessing that expansion that you maybe had in a bodily way and kind of restoring that balance with that Libra energy from Venus. And not allowing Venus to talk you into overindulging, because Venus has that quality to it. It's like, oh, wow, no, this is just great. Like, we should just go all in. But Libra kind of pulls that energy back and reminds us, like, hey, having moderation in all things can be a great thing. So, and what else? So the kind of interpretation of this could be understanding between sides and communities in terms of communication, a understanding between different sides, between different mentalities. Growing communities is something else we can find, expanding finances and possessions. And with that, I also have to note with that expansion, making sure that we are, again, being methodical about how we handle that expansion so that we are not overindulging and expending our finances in a way that's like, we've all had those moments where we've gotten happy with our wallet, like, oh, I have $200 in the bank. And then you keep thinking, oh, I have $200 every time you make a purchase. And then when it comes to your last purchase, you're thinking, oh, I have $200. And then it's like, oh, your bank account is empty. So making sure, again, that you are creating some stability when it comes to your finances. And even when your finances expand, making sure that your budget kind of changes and molds to fit that expansion, so that you're not thinking you have more money than you have, so you're not spending more than you have, more than what's necessary, but also so that you can focus on kind of holding on to that sense of stability that you do have, maybe by saving and just kind of continuing to work off of the money like you had in the past when you had less than that, which is something that some richer people tend to do. I remember having a professor or teacher once, and he would say, like, yeah, I'm well off, but I still drive a Toyota Corolla, and my house is just a 2-story home, and I still shop at Walmart, and I get my clothes from Marshalls. And it's like they aren't using their expanded resources as a sense of wanting to flex. They are saving that money. They're just living their lives, general life, doing things that aren't super extravagant. They don't need some Balenciagas to feel rich. Their bank account says that. The Balenciagas just show I had enough money to buy them. But then you're out of pocket how much money for the Balenciagas? So, expanding your finances and possessions, but being balanced with it. Generous offerings, a loving approach. Since this is Venus, we can see some expansion within love, within romance. It has a very Rococo, flashy, extravagant energy to it. If you've never seen Rococo art, I don't know if I could put it up. Maybe I'll post a picture as my picture in our Patreon. But Rococo has a very fine, flowy, extravagant, very Venusian energy. Big dresses, these really extravagantly decorated buildings, interior, very beautiful, very elegant, very flashy. And I'm definitely going to post some art because I feel like that is a great representation of that. It's the glamour of Hollywood as well, from outside looking in sort of view. So before we were talking about Hollywood, where it's maybe more so the sense of Hollywood where it's all the stories that you hear that you're not sure are true or not, but a lot of them are true, like the little cults that they have and the little things that they do and the things that people pay people to do in order to advance, like a lot of that has happened. As much as we may want to believe it or not. I've had some people that have been in situations and scenarios like that that have told me about experiences. So definitely there's the mask of Hollywood that we see from the outside view looking in. It's just what we see, but there's definitely something underneath that mask. We can also see benefit events come up around this time. Again, romance and vibrant sexuality, even tantra could be prevalent during this time. And that could be even seen as like an expansion within your own sexual energy, within your connection to another, or even just yourself and just everything around you. So that is that. I'm trying not to go too long on each of these just because I want to make sure I hit all of them and I'm not taking forever. So the next one is the new moon in Virgo, which I'm just going to put my date down here. Yeah, I think, oh, actually, there it is. But let me just do a quick Google search so I honestly forget the date. Yeah, right, September 6th. So yes, we've got the new moon in Virgo happening on this day as well. I will probably make a post. I'm going to make a reminder for myself so I don't forget to do a post. It's moving out. Oh no, I was playing by days, my bad. So as you can see, and see how quickly the houses change. That's why we don't use them in transits usually. But there you go. See, both at 14 degrees. That's our new moon right there. There's a strong trend to Uranus as well. But anyway, I will go over that when we get closer to that day. I'll make a little post and I will make a reminder for myself because it is going to be another busy weekend. So and sometimes I just like get so caught up in the busy that I forget that life goes on otherwise. So let me put these back down here because that kind of like tell me where they can give you more of a uniformity as we move forward. So we're going ahead a few days actually to the 10th. And here Venus moves into the sign of Scorpio. So I'll move this ahead a few hours, which it will be then in its detriment in Mars ruled sign. So Venus goes from feeling pretty nice in its own place, in its own sign, and then moves into a place of its exile or fall. It's a detriment, into a place of its detriment. So it's like before where it was feeling nice and cool and calm and collected at home because it was within its own home. Now it's like kind of, I would say maybe at a friend's house who has completely different interests and a different way of living. It's like maybe being someone who is used to eating a whole lot of meat on a keto diet, going to someone's house who is a strict vegetarian, and they're being hosted by that person. And even though it's like not terrible, it's just not they're used to. So that's kind of the energy of Venus moving into its detriment in Scorpio. But with that, we can see a sly, sort of sneaky sort of energy start to present and surface itself. We can see illusions and reflections within relationships starts to be brought up. That can be romantic and platonic. We can see temptations kind of surface themselves. Deep transformation is another thing that can be brought up. Possibly some wake-up calls for some people, especially within your relationships or the shadows within them, whether that's within yourself or within the relationship itself. Dealing with the shadow self, cutting cords and ties, releasing, and then also themes of sexuality, tantra, and kundalini surfacing themselves in this area yet again. Where before, we kind of felt that with the trine Jupiter, but yeah, some of these themes resurfacing themselves. So those are some things that you might kind of experience and deal with Venus moving to Virgo. Even if it's not a relationship, just things in general, things being presented in a way where it's like, it just seems and feels really good, but there's something underneath the surface. There's some sort of sneaky energy. It reminds me of the moon card in the tarot, where the moon card isn't necessarily like, I think it's related to the sign of Cancer, but for some reason I always relate it to Scorpio, maybe because there's usually a little scorpion on the ground. But it reminds me so much of Scorpio, where there's just like this reflective sort of energy. Or, Scorpio deals a lot with the shadows, a lot with the shadow world and things of that nature. And so, like, kind of that reflection that is being presented to you for you to identify with that part of yourself so that you can kind of merge the two and learn how to work with both of them. Because there is definitely the shadow wouldn't exist if it didn't have a purpose. So there's a reason why we have the shadow, there's a reason why we have the light, and it's just learning how to navigate and work with and through both of those. So moving to the 13th, oops, I'm just going to feed the chart it's coming up. On the 13th, we see the Sun in Virgo opposing Neptune in Pisces. And let me see if I can annotate this. Sun in Virgo opposing Neptune in Pisces. So there we go. And you can see it with the strong aspects, there are going to be some pretty strong lines. In the weak ones, as you can see with this here, this trine line here, it's not going to be as strong. So just ignore this. I don't know how to erase the individual line itself. Oh, wait, figured that out. So we have this opposition between the Sun and Neptune, the Sun in Virgo and Neptune in Pisces. The Sun has this energy, this vibe of meaning, of purpose, details, focus, logic, habits, and this is kind of combined with that Virgo energy, cycles, resources, and sources, and efficiency. And Pisces has some of those same themes of before that I mentioned. Very dreamlike nature, something that is kind of surreal. Again, like I said, dreamy. I can see if I can find them. Probably not going to be able to find it as quickly as I'm hoping. But yeah, intuitive energy, things of that nature, things that I kind of spoke about before. So we're seeing some more of those themes. But combined, we might start to see some themes of like informations without sources or information without sources. Kind of reminds me of like Facebook and Instagram and all social media platforms where people are just like, breaking news, this is not good for you, blah, 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 and they don't have any sources to back it up. And it's just like, okay, so how did you find that out? Like, at least drop a source. Because otherwise, so many people repost it and they're like, oh my gosh, you see this, and then it's like, you go to fact check it and it's like, what were we believing again? So, information without sources, opinions and organized thought presented as facts, confusion and purpose, new vision, wisdom, deepening spiritual practice or revisiting establishing habits when it comes to spiritual practice. So if you have been slacking off for quite some time, I won't call it slacking off, but sometimes life just gets in the way. Sometimes people just feel like, I'm not feeling that today, and that's cool. But we definitely want to make sure that we get back to the practices. So maybe reestablishing habits when it comes to that. A sense of breakthrough, spiritual purpose, God complex can come up. Kind of reminds me of cult energy too. Which is something I'll get to. Self-made and appointed guru. And be aware of those. And even just like something I see too lately, even within all communities, there are some people that are kind of coming into a deeper sense of knowledge who I feel like that's just part of the spiritual practice too and journey. You come into the knowledge and then when you come into it, you just feel like you're the most woke being on the planet Earth. And then, nobody can match your wokeness, and you have messages all the time to share, and you feel so insightful, and everything is just, oh, yes, spiritual. And it's like, that's great. That's amazing when you feel that. But, there's kind of like this God complex that comes up too, especially with people that kind of have this energy where they're like, oh, this is happening. Like, my third eye is open. I'm so woke. And then they get to this point where it's like they have like this God complex. And sometimes that's where it kind of stops for people. Something else I learned in my Kundalini course, but sometimes that's where it stops for people because you feel like, well, I'm woke. I got to this point. I have reached enlightenment. And so then you no longer continue to grow. And then you kind of start to kind of fall off in a way, even though you feel like you're still on the path. You begin to kind of feel like your information is it. Like, everything, and, you've figured out the secrets to the universe, just you alone as a human. And so it's, again, allowing ourselves to use this transit to kind of separate ourselves from that. I am the most woke being because I have just woken up and come out of the dark night of the soul. And now I've done my offerings, and here we are. We are now basically a pope within our life. So making sure that we kind of release that God complex and allow ourselves to continue to grow, remembering to kind of, I don't always like the word humble, but in the sense of humbling ourselves to allow ourselves to know that, yeah, we've learned some things, we've grown for sure. We have gone through some shadows and we have done some deep work, but we are not yet done. And once again, becoming the student so that you can continue to grow and learn. Becoming the student, relearning some of the things that you've even learned so you can continue to grow and learn. And making sure that you are being open and receptive to the experiences of others that they're sharing with you. And not allowing yourselves to, if there's certain parts of their beliefs or spirituality or whatever that, mean a lot to them, and they're speaking to you in a certain way or on a certain topic about these things, making sure that we are open to them rather than what you believe is wrong. I've learned it all, my eyes open, blah, blah, blah. And oh, since my eyes open, I feel like these matters don't matter. And it's funny because I see that in many communities, regardless of what race and what you believe. I see a lot of that where it's like, oh, I'm so awakened that these things don't matter anymore. And the more we focus on them, the more that they just accumulate and create bad things. And maybe in some cases that is the case. But one thing I learned in yoga, just in general from my yoga journey, is that a big part of yoga is speaking up about those things that are kind of servicing tradition, So like, for example, maybe speaking up about ways that people are being appropriative of certain practices. That is yoga. Educating people on the true history of things as it pertains to tradition, that is yoga. And making sure that we check people even, as uncomfortable as that might be, when they want to involve their ego in things, that is also yoga. So yoga doesn't only mean asana movement. Yoga, being a yogi doesn't mean just being a people pleaser and saying, oh, it's okay. I know you believe that. Part of yoga is kind of assessing those things that people find it difficult to believe or accept, and spreading that knowledge that is essential to keeping a tradition alive, or keeping the true essence of a tradition going, and without disregarding years and years and years of tradition that have been set in place. So whatever the case might be, releasing that God complex and calling out those things as need be, and being aware of the people that are self-made gurus and appointed spiritual teachers and things. Not that you can't be, but there's definitely a side to everything. But a documentary that came up for me when I was thinking about this, when I was thinking about archetypes, was excuse me, was Kumare. I think that's how you say it, but such a great documentary. And essentially, I'm not sure, I think this guy might have been Indian himself. But basically, he was kind of doing like a social experiment where he just wanted to see, how easy it would be for him to become a guru and how easy it would be to have a following, for people to automatically just be like, oh, he's a guru. He must know what he's talking about. So let's follow him. But I think he basically had a team of people kind of give him his look. He had like a long beard. He wore robes all the time. He would go to different yoga studios and connect with people, and he gained this huge following. And I don't know if I want to give it away or not, but by the end, he basically had to tell everyone, and I think he might have mentioned this in the beginning anyway, what his plan was, but he had to tell everyone, like, hey, like, I'm just a regular guy. I'm from LA or wherever he's from. I thought it was LA. Just a regular dude, born and raised here in the US, something like that. And I just wanted to see, this was a social experiment. And it was funny because some people were really upset. Some people were, okay, I still learned a lot. And some people were like, no, you're a guru. Like, you are it. You are that. So, yeah, being aware of those energies this month within yourself and within others, and allowing yourself to do the yogic work when it's necessary as well. Not standing by the sidelines, just allowing things to happen, but allowing yourself to take some involvement in, what's the word? And allowing the true essence of things that you are knowledgeable on, allowing yourself to share that and not being afraid of, even if you have a friend or something that is kind of into their ego and, whatever, self-made guru, God complex, allowing them to lovingly speaking to them and being like, hey, might want to check this out, might want to be aware of this, and allowing yourself to address that as you might need to. So the last few keywords are devotional practices, realizing the spiritual qualities of the whole within you, and not trying to be the whole itself. Okay, so moving right along, moving to the 14th really quick. Just have a few more things so I'm going to just run through them quickly because I don't want to take forever. Mars moves into Libra on the 14th. So let's see, Mars is right here. And Mars is making its way right there. You can see the shift into Libra. And so here we can see again the word balance coming up. Balance and opposing energies, possibly even a stalemate, because once Mars is in Libra, it's not super energetic. It's not moving super, I don't know, Mars in its own sign would be a lot more kind of like a torpedo, but this is more so like maybe like a motorboat, slow moving. Let's see what else I put down. There's a slowing down, maybe even a truce between sides. Thought before action, ideas without execution. So there's two sides to this. This could also surface as passive aggressive or passive aggression, knowing things that are wrong but not wanting to upset anyone. Again, passive aggression. Entering arguments from a place of balance. Mental debates and challenges as opposed to physical exertion of Mars energy. So yeah, this is more of like a mental sort of energy rather than physical exertion. As you can see with passive aggression, which is more so a mental energy. So that's something that we might experience as we move into Mars and Libra. And even just like within the world, within some of the things happening, a lot of the tension between different sides and things. Maybe there's a truce, maybe there's a stalemate, maybe there's a slowing down. Maybe there are certain threats thrown around, whatever, but it's like passive aggression. It's not like actual action. So that might be some of the energy that we may flow through on the 14th, or notice start to build up on the 14th, around to the 15th, because see, oh, yeah, oh, I was looking at the wrong planet. Around the 14th to the 15th. Like I said, some of these transits, they kind of move through the day, so. And then moving to the 16th, Venus in Scorpio is squaring Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius. Venus in Scorpio. Squaring Saturn, it's 1 degree off, but as it moves through the day, it gets closer in degrees. So with this transit, we can notice emotions overcoming a sense of structure or tradition, responsibility within relationships, a lack of accepting responsibility within connections or relationships, becoming bored with a sense of routine, transformation in our routines, using and manipulating people in order to gain what you want, love and hate relationships, reestablishing structure, sobering up and releasing addiction, transformation in ideals and morals when it comes to our relationships, platonic, business, work, whatever, romantic, addressing relationship needs, realistic or unrealistic, sexual guilt and pain, wanting to step out of your comfort zone, but second guessing at the last minute. Can I do this? Can I endure this? So that might be some of the things that we see with Venus in Scorpio. Oh, are you kidding me? I pointed it to the wrong one. I'm sorry. I think it's like more pointing towards Mercury there. Venus in Scorpio and Saturn in Aquarius. So those are the things that we might see. Kind of like a second guessing of self, but also kind of second guessing the things that are happening around us. And a large emphasis on stability, on responsibility, on accepting that responsibility, and not allowing ourselves to get too enamored by the smoke and mirrors or the glitter that might not be gold, and allowing ourselves to kind of have more of a practical approach to whatever transformation might be taking place during this time. So let's see, on the 20th, we have a new or full moon, not new moon. 1920, full moon Pisces. And you can see it here. There is a opposition between the sun right here and the moon right over here. And so that is a full moon. I'll go into that on the 20th a little further. And then the 22nd, we have the sun moving into Libra. And so you can probably see it right there. There it is, 29 degrees of Virgo. And then it moves right into Libra. Some of the quick themes that we might experience with that is, again, the sense of community, strong Libra energy. I mean, we had Venus in Libra starting out the month a little earlier, and then we had Mercury, Mars, the Sun. So there's a lot of Libra energy happening. But community, mediators, calming, harmony, charming sort of energy, diplomacy, law and order, finding a way for everyone to win and be happy. So again, sort of this energy of like, hey, a suicide, let's come to a conclusion here so that we're not just overexerting ourselves and going crazy. So sun moving into Libra, and then Mercury in Libra on this day, I believe, also squares Pluto. So yep, and we can see that exact little connection here. Mercury squaring Pluto. And some of the themes that we will see, Mercury will have more than one kind of connection with Pluto because it will be going retrograde toward the end of the month on the 28th. And so it enters this, it's a square with Pluto. And then as it enters the square, Pluto moves along. And then once it hits its retrograde, you'll see it start to move back, and then it moves back into a square of Pluto because it goes back in degrees. And so it will retrograde. It'll go back through the square. And this has a lot to do with deep mental transformation, mental dealing with Mercury, in the air energy of Libra, and then transformation coming from Pluto and Capricorn, adding some structure and some responsibility to that energy. Let's see. Okay, deep mental transformation, yeah. Realizations and breakthroughs, revisiting mental issues of the past, reassess, recover, and rewrite the story. Mental fixation, mental solution, manic depression, something else that kind of came up for me when I was thinking of this. Gossip, harmful journalism, which could be, I forget what I was watching. I don't know if it was a movie or something, but it was talking about how the media is essentially not a news source, not a credible news source in some cases. In a lot of ways, it can be, it's just me here, bald without hair. In a lot of cases, it can be, it's media. It's called, where did I hear this? They were saying it's called television or news entertainment for a reason, because it is entertainment. It is not necessarily news, which is interesting because we can also see that with I'm sure you've seen videos, and if you haven't, maybe go look into them, but there are videos of different news anchors basically speaking, and it's so weird because it's like there are like multiple, maybe even hundreds on the screen. They're all saying literally the same exact thing, regardless of what channel it's on. So go take a peek at that. There's another movie that I saw, it's like from the 80s, about a TV anchor who just like went crazy on air, and like he was like, "No, this is real, blah, 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 blah. This is what they're doing. The media isn't real. They're telling you a lot of stuff just for fear, blah, blah, blah," So I don't know, something to go check out, but that's something that reminded me of that. This Mercury Libra squaring Pluto, it kind of gives me that vibe of like harmful journalism, where it's like none of the stories are necessarily true. It's just kind of to help establish some sense of control by giving people information that makes them fearful, so that they feel more accepting and trusting in these sources, just because they don't really want to do that research themselves. Verbal karma, so be aware, maybe some of the things that you say during this time might come back and hit you, or come back to you, make their way back to you. That can also be in the form of like speaking things into existence and not knowing how powerful your word is, and then, oh, I didn't realize that was taking place. Depth psychology, shadows and hidden things surfacing, so be aware of all those things. Excuse me. On the 22nd and around the 23rd, Venus opposes Uranus, and you can see it here. It's almost in that degree with Uranus where it's like exact, and there you go, it's exact on the 23rd. But this gave me the idea of stock markets, of markets just in general. So be aware and pay attention to stock markets, crypto markets, if you're a part of those. I am personally a part of both, so I pay attention to these things. There might be some drastic or even shocking changes, maybe a false sense of luck or winning. So like, be aware before you get too excited, and also be aware before you throw too much of your finances in, and then, everything ends up going down. Although that could be seen as an opportunity, because when things go down, you can put some more in, and then you'll start to see it come up over time. But, it's not always going to be a very instantaneous game that we're playing, and you also have to be smart and know your limitations. So false sense of luck or winnings, a sudden burst of winnings or earnings. So it could go either way. Either you feel lucky and you feel like you're going to win and you don't, or you don't feel lucky at all. You feel like you're not even paying attention to it, and then randomly it's like, oh, my crypto is up and I earned $1,000 off of this. Be aware of cheating and stealing. Cheating at a casino, thinking you got away with it, but you get caught unexpectedly. Kind of gives me that sort of energy. Sudden excitement and then quickly getting bored. uncomfortable or restrictive dress codes, and changes in relationships. So things you might want to pay attention to on the 23rd. And let me see, I need to erase my little annotations here. On the 25th, Mars in Libra trines. Here, we see it. Oops. Oh, it's horrible. I'm just going to do a little line. There we go. Trines Saturn in Aquarius. And so this brings about themes of stable action in the face of growing responsibilities. Instead of acting out quickly, maybe a more methodical approach and effort when it comes to achieving your goals and putting in effort towards your goals. This can also address the work that you put in that builds a foundation for those things that come after you, for the people that come after you, for not come after you, but like the people that come after you, generations, new people in the workplace, etc. You know, setting things up that creates a beneficial environment for them when they start to step in. Let's see. Passive aggression and effort when it comes to goals. And that's something else that can be seen. The work you put in builds a foundation for those that come after you, possibly including yourself. Ambition, motivation, discipline, and balanced effort, all very important themes that we'll see on the 25th. Forgot to do on that. And that was, what was that? Mars. Here we go. So my annotation is wrong, but you see this strong trine line is the most bold dark blue line, and that's between Mars and Sun. And let's see, on the, Mars trining Saturn. On the 28th, moving right along, Mercury in Libra goes retrograde. And so, where's Merc? There it is. So it could also be the 27th too, but see, it's black right now and it turns red. And that means it's going retrograde. And as you can see, if I continue to click, it's going back in degrees. And so it's going to be re-entering that, what is it? That relationship with Pluto as it does. See, it's at the 25th degree. It left that little square of Pluto, and now it's going back and it becomes exact again. So you can see that towards the end of the month. But on the 28th, Mercury goes retrograde, 27th, 28th. And that brings about themes of a false sense of frantic urgency before the energy, a false sense of urgency before the energy is right. So kind of reminds me of like, I made a note here, I thought, but it's like later realizing that the urgency wasn't necessary in the first place. Being excited for a launch for something, it's like waiting outside of Best Buy, or no, it's like waiting for the new Apple phone, you know? And often people are like, oh yeah, give it a minute, you know, because they're gonna have some bugs, they're gonna have some things to work out. The new OS is not as amazing. So maybe give it a month before you get the new phone, or even get the last one because the bugs are already worked out. A lot of people do jump the gun and they get the phone and then they're sitting there completely annoyed. And that's why there's so many bad reviews on the Apple website right initially, or on the Amazon website right initially when these things come out, because people are like, oh, this bug, that bug, this went wrong. And it's like, okay, well, you know, what do you expect? You got a new iPhone, and the iPhones usually are kind of buggy at first when they first come out. So, you know, it's just what you gotta expect at this point. So it's like being really excited and having a sense of urgency because, oh, everyone's going to buy the new phone. You know, I got to get them first, you know, got to be the first one with the phone. And then you get it, you're like, should have waited because now my phone's not even compatible with all these things. And I have to wait for them to update. And some of the apps don't work with my new phone. And there are all these bugs. And when I call people, there's this high screeching noise. And so be aware. Don't have this sense of urgency. Just be kind of more calm, cool, and collected when it comes to these things, and allow yourself to wait them out. Mercury retrograde I learned this from Rick Levine, a really famous astrologer, or a well-learned astrologer. He's been in the game for 40 years, but Mercury has the sense of urgency. And even like when it began the blow, when it goes into its retrograde, even people feel the sense of urgency, like, oh, I gotta get my meetings done now. I gotta get my trip planned before Mercury retrograde. I make sure blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you know, I understand all that, but allowing yourself to calm down will benefit you a whole lot more, because the sense of urgency will almost prove itself wrong and let you know you didn't have to be urgent in the first place. So waiting would have been more beneficial. On the 20, oh crap, on the 29th, moving right on back, Venus and Scorpio trines Neptune and Pisces. I'm not going to do the little arrow thing because it takes a minute, but you can see one of these dark blue lines. Neptune is trining Pisces, or not. Neptune is trining Venus. Venus is trining Neptune, Scorpio, and Pisces. So it's a healing watery energy. It's a trine because they're in the same element. It's a mystical sort of energy, magical and surreal, possibly a good time to connect with your guides and spiritual energies. Persephone is one specifically that came up. Do what places you into a new reality. Enhanced, sweet, and loving atmosphere when it comes to your dreams. That could be both your dream goal dreams, or that could be like your actual dreams. And a reunion with the spirit who has passed on via your dreams. So if you're wanting to look at themes that might come up in your dreams during this time, a reunion with some spirit guides, with a spirit that you haven't connected with in a while, someone that's passed on, all things that you could find in your dreams. Then let's see, the sun moves into Libra. Oh no, Sun in Libra trine Saturn in Aquarius. So that's on the same day. Yeah, and you can see it's exact here. It's another bold line. And this energy, we're dealing a lot with character since there's the sun here. Structure and focus become interrelated as well. So character, sun, structure and focus, Saturn become interrelated. Responsibility being a large part of the character, but finding balance within that sense of structure as well. Achievement, being under the spotlight, possibly recognition. Out in the actual world, you might see things come under the spotlight, things being recognized, new sense of structure, maybe even kind of rules in certain ways, maybe powerful people or people in high positions making certain, kind of new rules or new restrictions in some way, possibly. I wouldn't see it as a restriction, but maybe like a suggestion. It reminds me of those videos where older people would share what they learned in their earlier years with the younger people. There was a video that I saw recently. It was like what boomers want to share with, I don't know, millennials about how they grew up or something like that. And I might have talked about this before, but it was like a video of some different people talking, but mostly it was like these educational videos that they used to show baby boomers when they were in school regarding how you should talk to your parents, how you should handle situations, what emotions are good for you to have and what not. It's like a very, very weird kind of like, I didn't realize, but now I realize why some of those people in those generations act a certain way, or, certain topics are taboo or whatever, because they were kind of like molded and educated in a way to believe or to practice these different things because of what they were taught in these educational videos in school. I'll have to post the video because it's really interesting. But that's what it reminds me of, those videos where it's like like an elderly person or someone who's quite older saying, or someone is interviewing them and they're like, oh, what would you tell kids who are like 20? Like, what did you learn in your 20s that you would tell kids? And then, there's a video on it. So I'll post that video. Trying to forget or remember the other thing. Oh, no, trying to remember the other thing I was going to mention, but I will post that video. I'll make a note. And the very last little final thing before I end out here is Venus squaring Jupiter, which is in retrograde. So this kind of gives me the vibe of like I always like kind of have a picture or scene with these things. So it reminds me of someone going to the bar and continuing to drink while they feel like they're not drunk, but they are completely like belligerently, is that a word, belligerently? But they are belligerent and they are drunk. And so overindulgence, maybe readdressing past patterns where you've dove deep without thinking twice. Um, it's great for having fun though. It's energy surrounded around enjoying your moment, even though it's a square. These are two benefic planets, so that kind of overpowers any of the strain that there might be from the square. But this is maybe just like the square presenting growth through some minor difficulties. But it's a good time to entertain guests, have a party, engage in a little gathering, which could be virtual because, the world is what it is right now. But yeah, I need to figure out what that other thing I was going to post was. I completely forget what that was. But otherwise, I hope that you found this useful. I hope you guys like these little videos. I try not to make them too long, but I know I love watching the long astrology forecast videos, and I feel like it makes it more personal when I speak on these things in this sort of setting. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any other ideas or questions or anything about any of these transits, definitely let me know. If you have any questions about how to find these in your chart, let me know. But until then, I will see you guys in the mandala reading. I'll be doing that. I'm going to say I'll post it next week because I have some things coming up this weekend. So not to overload my pile, but to make sure I get things out to you guys, I'll definitely be doing that. So I hope you have an amazing September. I hope it is safe and wonderful and you stay healthy. And I will see you guys in the next video.